Today, we're going to be working on one of my favorite comic series, Conan the Barbarian. We're going to try to get out a pretty heinous spine roll. So, if this is helpful or you found anything useful, please like and subscribe, and let's get to working on a giant spine roll on Conan the Barbarian. Hello again, everyone. Hopefully your comic collecting is going well. You're grabbing those keys and finding those grails for your collection. Today, we're working on a book out of my personal collection and one of my favorite characters, King Conan number 11 from 1982. So again, this book is over 40 years old. I picked it up out of a dollar bin, and I think the guy even gave it to me for 50 cents because it has this very pronounced spine roll. So a spine roll is literally when the spine of the book starts rolling over and it's not lining up on the staples. So the vast majority of the books that you are going to see, the staples are supposed to be on the outside edge, kind of like that. This one, clearly they are not. This is a function of bad storage. Who knows? Again, a lot of times a book isn't bagged and board or it isn't stored properly. It gets shifted when somebody sits on top of it and shifts the cover or the back to the left or the right. Again, this is not a high-grade book, but this is something that is just very personal for me. It's a character that I love. Overall, there's a lot of soiling on the book. We've got a color break here that, again, is a result of that spine roll and the way it was stored for years. You've got a lot of fraying and some small tears at the bottom of the book. The interior pages, you know, they're off-white. There's some staining. Looks like maybe there was some water damage at one point in time. But a lot of this comes back to the spine roll. Just makes things really ugly. It is really affecting the book, and especially some of these interior pages have become more brittle because, like these edges up here, are exposed to light, air, who knows what, that normally would be protected by the cover. The back cover is probably even worse. We've got some foxing, maybe some mold growth down here, a stain of some kind. We've got bits of, I don't know if it's food or what it could be, but we're going to see if we can get that off. And we're going to work on trying to get the spine roll out today. So first things first, let's just give it a very basic dry clean. And let's give it a dry clean. I'm going to start off by using my magazine backer board against the staples and just see if we can't start massaging that to lay flat. And that'll kind of give us some instructions moving forward. So here in the middle of the book, you can see that the bend is to the left of the staples up top. It's a little bit more centered, but not quite at the bottom. So what we want to do is line it up on those staples right where it should bend and see if we can't just start kind of bending it back into some semblance of what it should look like. So if this book was in good shape, that's generally where we'd be. So I'm going to try to keep just some pressure on that as I go through our cleaning process. Just see if I can hold that in place as much as possible.
A few moments later.
So there are some strange things going on in the back of the book. Because of the spine roll, I'm going to start with the back. And again, see if we just can't keep that shape and that pressure against the spine to hold it in. So going to our handy dandy manicure kit, I'm just going to try to find something here that can help me kind of massage off, or maybe scrape off some of those just weird gunky bits. I'm hesitant to guess what they are. Could be anything from old food to boogers to goodness knows what else. So hopefully there aren't a bunch of boogers on this book that are 40 years old. So thankfully, this big, which actually probably was a booger, came off pretty smoothly. Again, still hoping to hold as much pressure just kind of against this backer board as possible. We're starting to encourage that bend to go back in place. But this is a really dirty back end of the book. So we are going to move on to the eraser stage, see if we can't make some progress here. So when we are using the eraser, we're always trying to put pressure just in one direction. Usually it's away from the spine, but especially on the edges and the corners where there is some damage, there are some tears. We just have to be really careful. So I'm trying to put pressure with my finger where those tears are. And even though I'm moving into the tear, hopefully we're getting just not as much tension on where the paper is already weakened. And again, I'm only applying pressure and moving the eraser in one direction, away from the spine, because again, the spine is the problem on this book, but every book, that is the weak point, right? Because that's where the paper has been punctured by the staples and where there potentially is the most opportunity for tearing and ripping. And again, on the spine, I'm moving away from the staples. That's something we would do every time we would clean a spine like this, not just on our spine roll book here. But we're starting to see some progress. I'm going to turn the book just to get a little bit more tension, make it easier for me to hold that backer board against the staples with my fingers with the least amount of pressure as possible. Now, we also have a couple of weird, I don't know if they're stains or just soil marks. Again, I think this comes back to this book just being in a really bad physical spot for a long time to get that bad spine roll. And you can see with just the eraser is bringing up just a ton of just kind of dirt and soil. I'm putting very little pressure on this. And as we clean this kind of edge up a little bit, there's a watermark here that's really becoming apparent. Nothing we're going to be able to do about that right now with the dry clean. But we are, again, just taking kind of years of dirt and grime and finger oil, who knows what else, just off of this book. So we've lightened some of these spotting, which probably is mold. We've also kind of revealed some other damage as well, just as we've removed soil. Looks like there's an indent here on this part of the book. Again, with a spine roll like this, that indent is probably the least of our concerns and problems. But the book is starting to look a little bit better. So, letting our pressure off for just a little bit, you see the spine just immediately starts going back and then to a problem state. Let's try some of our Abserine and see if we can get a little bit more just grime off of this back cover before we turn our attention back to the front. So again, just making nice, smooth streaks with gentle pressure. Again, we're using this Abserine, which is designed to pick up dirt, dust, smoke, get things off of paper products. And at the end of the day, that's all a comic book is a very fancy piece of paper. Now I'm going to hit this with the Abserine eraser sponge. This will again get any leftover dirt, debris, eraser shavings. It also helps kind of get any of that dust or debris that was left over by our Absarine putty. Just wipes it away. Gives us as clean of paper as we can hope for with the condition this book is in. Again, as we've come through, we've cleaned this book, I am starting to see again more areas of damage like I didn't initially see. This issue here in the white, it looks like it's a water stain or maybe a Kool-Aid stain. It's got a little bit of a red hint to it. The eraser lightened it a little bit, but that's not going to go away with just eraser. And then here, looks like pencil mark. It does come up with our eraser. Got a few more dents and dings. But then we flip it. Let's go back to the front and see if we can't do any cleanup here. So, starting with our eraser. So, oddly enough, the white areas on the front cover actually in pretty good shape. You know, we're definitely not going to try to erase any of the colored areas. That is just asking for trouble and to remove ink that we really want to stay on a 40-year-old comic book. So again, trying to keep as much pressure on that spine in the area that we want as possible. Let's go back to our Absarine putty. Ooh. Finishing again with our Absarine sponge. So at this point, the book is still trying to roll back into the direction that's hurting the spine. Again, it's probably been stored like that for over 20 years, or at least over the last decade. So now we're faced with a choice. We can try, there's really two, well, we have a choice between two methods to repair the spine roll. First, what we've already been doing, really trying to physically manipulate the book to roll back. And we've had some success already, just kind of holding it in place using the magazine board. It is not nearly as pronounced as it was, but we're still seeing that roll. So again, option one, we try to physically manipulate the book, get it back into the position we want. Or option two, we can press the book completely flat, take the bend out of it entirely, then re-bend it the way that we want and press it a second time. So I feel like based on the progress that we've had so far, just with this book starting to level out with pressure over only a couple of minutes, let's try option one. Let's just try to, again, physically manipulate this paper back into the shape that it was intended. We'll press it, and I think the very first thing we need to do is add some moisture and some humidity to this book so the paper is going to bend and be a little bit more pliable. So we're working on the spine roll on Conan the Barbarian. We put this in the press at 164 degrees for 550 seconds. Then we let it cool in the press with the heat off for about 24 hours. So let's see how we did. All right. So if you remember what that spine roll looked like before, this is tremendous improvement. Now, we're still seeing this. We've got a line here where we previously had that spine roll kind of laying over the book. Looks like we still have just a couple of marks through the middle of the book. We've got the scalloping here on the bottom edge with some tears. We're still getting a little bit of an overhang and a very slight spine roll. So in terms of progress, I'd say this is pretty tremendous improvement, but I think there's still a little bit more we can do. So let's get our SRP paper and our other backer board out of the way for a minute. And remember, we press this at the same temperature we normally do, the same time that we normally do, but less pressure than we normally do. So we eased up on the tussie. I'm going to try a little bit of a different technique. So I'll take out our inner page and our back page. Just a minute. Again, there are other defects in this book. We're not super worried about those for the moment because we're just really focusing on the spine roll for this particular issue. So what I'm going to try is I have a magazine backer board where I have snipped out little areas where the staples will fit. So what I'm going to do is align that right with the staples. And that way we can get even a little bit deeper into the book as opposed to butting up against the edge of the staples. We're actually hugging the staples now with this cutout. And I'm going to try to form this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a Q-tip. Actually, first, we're going to get some distilled water on a makeup pad. Then I'm going to use a Q-tip because I don't want this to be sopping. But I am going to moisten the spine of the book. Just to introduce some humidity, help us keep kind of moving this damaged cover back to where it belongs. So we've got our, what I'm going to call their staple board, lined up. See if we just can't roll this back a little bit. So that it would be perfect if we can get that to stay there. I'm just going to hold it there for just a couple of seconds. And we're going to reassemble our stack, put it back in the press, and go from there. So this particular backing board, which we used for the middle, picked up some kind of foreign artifact. I don't know if it's a booger or a piece of food. It was in the book. We could have cleaned and addressed that before. We just went right for the spine roll, but I'm going to get rid of this because we don't want that pressing into the book as we put a little bit more pressure into it. Now, one of the things when we have the spine rolls, we want to address how the cover is laying over some of the pages. So we're kind of a little concerned here, but I think this is going to turn out okay. We've got, again, a good shape here. We've got our backer board. So I'm going to reassemble our stack. I'm going to start with 60-pound card stack in the back, all the way to the spine. Our SRP. We've got a magazine backer board. And making sure this is as tight as possible. I'm going to go through and just apply a little bit more water to the spine after we get the 60-pound on the inside cover all the way to the spine. Again, we want to see that page move. Heat and pressure are the magic here with just a little bit of humidity to help that book reform. right how we want it. Got our SRP paper, shiny side down, and another backer board. So we're going to put it back in the press, 164 degrees, 550 seconds. Add a little bit more pressure this time than we did last time, and we'll come back and see how it turns out.
8 hours later.
All right, we've had our book in the heat press for 8 hours, and let's unpack our stack. Backer board, SRP, and there is our King Conan number 11. Now remember, the goal here was to try to eliminate that nasty spine roll we had, and I am really happy with that result. Now, there is some damage to the book that we're just not going to be able to deal with. You see this color breaking line. Again, that was from that original spine roll when we took it out. But that is real clean. That is a real nice job in terms of taking out that spine roll. Now, is this book perfect? Absolutely not. Is it a huge improvement and something I'm proud to have in my collection? Absolutely. So again, super happy with the result on the spine roll here. If you have any questions or if you picked up anything in the video, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.